Naraka is by far my favorite game right now, and unfortunately, during some less popular hours, finding a match doesn't always happen within a reasonable amount of time. The reason for this could be attributed to a lack of players, but that doesn't really tell the full story at all. The game is playable on Steam and Epic, as well as Xbox and PC Game Pass. As far as I know, all of them have their fair share of players. So with the overall player base set aside, we can take a look at the matchmaking, and that's where a huge problem becomes evident: the replenish setting. This setting right here is responsible for a substantial portion of the slow matchmaking problem, as well as other sizable issues, so you might be able to guess where I'm going with this when it comes to the solution. This setting is only available to Xbox and PC Game Pass players, so if you're a Steam player, you might not even know what it does. It's sort of self-explanatory, but basically what it does is it gives you an estimated matchmaking time when you enter queue, and once you reach that estimated time, it fills all empty slots with bots, and you get a match. That means anyone with this setting on is playing with an extremely low minimum threshold for real players in a match. That's really bad, since what it results in is replenish players constantly being pulled into very low population matches, while the, for lack of a better term, real queue is essentially robbed of players it just had to populate a real lobby. Here's a quick animation to hopefully better visualize this. We have non-replenish users on the left, typically Steam players, and on the right are replenish players, Xbox. Let's say 3 players join from Steam, now 3 from Xbox, now 3 more from each. And pause. This is a cross-platform game, of course, so naturally these players are piling into the same overall queue. Let's say the threshold for a quote-unquote real match to be found is 30 players. Well, great. We're already over a third of the way there. Or are we? Unpause. Okay, I think you get the point. But basically that cycle just goes on, continuously piping off small groups of replenish setting players while the Steam queue stagnates. In the animation, I showed the same rate of players joining from each platform, but in reality, of course, it varies. And during less popular periods for non-replenish users, splitting up the matchmaking like this really hurts. There is the rare occurrence that the two pools actually do get thrown together, but as you can imagine, that would be when there's somewhere close to 30 non-replenish players built up, and they happen to snag a few replenish players for a full match. So what happens when an Xbox player turns off replenish and hops into queue, only for it to take 10 times as long to get a match? They go back to the replenish setting, worsening queue times for real matches. That's the worst part about it really, is that the setting was created with the intention of speeding up matchmaking, but the fact is that it's working against its own purpose. From what I understand about Naraka players, the vast majority of them want to be in real player populated matches, not bot matches. So how do you offer the fastest matchmaking for real matches? You remove the replenish setting. Get rid of the multiple ongoing bot matches that start every 2 or 3 minutes, and throw us all together to form full matches much faster. I'll make it super clear that I think the solution to matchmaking is to remove this setting entirely, but at the very least, the guaranteed matchmaking time should be dramatically increased. At least then it would feel a little bit more like something to fall back on, rather than a gimme match chock full of bots. Another thing they could do, if not remove it, is to make it off by default. If I remember correctly, this setting is on when you first download the game on Xbox, meaning that plenty of players literally don't even realize that they're fighting bots. Not super related, but they did just disable map selection, which is a step in the right direction towards faster queues, so props to them on that. That's kinda it for my thoughts on matchmaking times, but I can already see a future comment forming. But wait, the reason a lot of people have replenish on isn't because of matchmaking times, it's because of how difficult lobbies with Steam players are. And that leads us right into what I guess is part 2 of this video, but before I can go into that, we have to talk about the existence of the xbot. Xbox and PC Game Pass players are tagged with an X at the end of their names, and they're usually, or should I say we're usually, really bad compared to Steam players. Frame rate and input delay is an obvious factor in the skill gap between console and PC players, but notice that the term xbot doesn't discriminate. Console or PC, doesn't matter. If you have the X tag, you're an xbot. Okay, so if frame rate isn't the issue, why are Steam players typically so much better? Well, guess what? It comes back to the replenish setting. As an xbot myself that played with replenish on from the get-go, I shot straight to Asura in no time, and it wasn't difficult. As a total beginner, for a lot of that time I didn't even realize my matches were full of bots. So eventually the day comes that I realize the Xbox leaderboard is essentially full of completely artificial, meaningless rank, and I turn replenish off. The floodgates open, and all of a sudden, you're fighting max rank players that actually got there by fighting other players, not bots. That's when an xbot becomes an xbot. They get high rank through bot matches, and then they either turn off the setting, or hit that rare occurrence of being pulled into a real match despite the setting still being on. I see Steam players complain all too frequently about how much it sucks to get an X player as a teammate in duo or trio, and in a way that's fair, but it's not the fault of the X player, it's the fault of the replenish setting. If the setting was removed, say goodbye to Asura Xbox players that are the equivalent of silver Steam players. If you're a high rank replenish player, it makes total sense to hate real lobbies. It took those Steam players hundreds of hours to reach their rank, and you'd have a much more enjoyable time being back in silver, fighting players that are actually at your skill level. Removing the replenish bots setting doesn't destroy fast matchmaking, and it doesn't throw you to the wolves of Steam, at least not in the long run. It rights the scales, giving everyone a fair chance at populated matches, and doesn't set up Xbox players to totally suck until they quit the game. As you can see, I was Asura at the beginning of this season, and now I'm Empyrean 2. Not Asura anymore, not even Astral, yet I'm a far better player than I was when I was in Asura and fighting bots. I actually dipped down to Solar 1 at some point after turning off Replenish, and it was finally at that point that I started getting pretty good. And let me tell you, I've had way more fun climbing from Solar 1 to Empyrean 2 than I did going from Bronze 5 to Asura. Sure, the leaderboard might look something like this for a while after the setting is removed, but I'd much rather be fighting people that are actually my own skill level rather than godlike pros or bots. If that means I'm a gold player instead of Empyrean, who cares? I mean, how crazy is it that matchmaking is based on ranking points, but on one platform, it's infinitely easier to obtain those points? That's a massive fundamental flaw. If that alone doesn't convince you that the replenish setting needs to go, I'm not entirely sure what else to say. What can you do as an Xbox or PC Game Pass player to help the situation? Well, for one, you can bite the bullet and turn off replenish, and I promise you it will pay off in the long run. 2, maybe leave some game feedback in the Discord in the appropriate channel, letting the staff know why replenish should be removed. If you're a Steam player, it's not fair to you that you can get teammates in ranked that have been essentially playing the game on easy mode, and while I'm on the topic of fairness, it's not fair that I can complete quests with total ease just by turning on replenish, while you have to play out of your mind in real lobbies. To sum up what Naraka can do to dramatically improve matchmaking, here's the full list. Remove map selection so we can't split ourselves into separate queues. Great, they already did that. Remove the replenish bot setting, remove the replenish bot setting, remove the replenish bot setting. I can't say it enough. Remove the ability to turn off crossplay, which is something I didn't really touch on, but I think it's clear why that would help. And number 4, which seems like an ever-fading dream at this point, make the game free to play and leave monetization to the cosmetics. If they combined these 4 things, and on top of that, finally release the game on PlayStation, I mean, how could this game that we all love not blow up in popularity? That's about all I have to say for now, but I'd love to start a conversation in the comments, so please do leave your thoughts down below. Subscribe for more Naraka content, and I'll see you next time.